Hello and welcome to the 9th in our video series on how to play Heroes of Might and Magic 3 the board game. In this chapter we'll be teaching you how to play the Battlefield expansion, and do check out the playlist for a full list of videos.
And hello everyone, it's Stella.
And Tarrant here from Meeple University.
Alright, let's go to the classroom.
In the core game of Heroes of Might and Magic 3, you'll be going out on a detailed exploration of the lands and playing some simplified battles on this 4x5 combat grid. The Battlefield expansion, which plays primarily as a 1 versus 1 game, flips that script and gives you a simplified version of the exploration with a more detailed and tactical version of the battle. This version has two main modes, Adventure Mode and Skirmish Mode, and we'll take you through the Adventure Mode first. The Adventure Mode of the game is played in two halves. In the first half, players will be simulating the exploration of the map by drawing adventure cards and resolving them to build up their engines. This is what will let you gain resources and income to buy units and to search for more powerful cards. Once you've resolved a set number of rounds, you'll go to the battlefield for a fight to the death. Set up your faction much like the base game. You won't start with any buildings constructed, you'll have minimum incomes, and you'll start with 15 gold, 3 building materials, and a valuable. You have no starting units, and your starting Might and Magic deck is the same as in the standard game. Also set up the spell, artifact, and ability cards as in the base game. Shuffle the 3 new decks, Adventure and Positive and Negative Morale. You won't use the morale tokens, the astrologer events, or the neutral units. Choose a first player for the first round and you're now ready to play. The adventure phase is played in rounds, and rounds will alternate between resource rounds in which players will gain income and astrologer rounds. In the latter, instead of resolving an astrologer's card, each player may either increase 1 step in the resource of their choice, or may roll 1 resource die, gain the basic increment in the resource rolled, so that's 5 money, 2 building resources or 1 valuables, and increase 1 step in that income. Next, players will gain adventure cards. Starting from the round's first player, and this will pass back and forward between the players from round to round, there will be 3 adventure cards drawn. The first player will look at them, choose 1 to keep, and pass the other 2 to the other player. That player will choose 1 to keep, and the third will be discarded. Then players will take turns to resolve their adventures. On your turn, you either resolve the effect on the adventure, or store it for a future round. You can resolve either your drawn adventure or your saved adventure, not both in a given round. You can't store more than 1 adventure, and if you wish to store a new one, you must discard the old one. Meanwhile, town actions are still in play, and at any point during the round, whether it be your turn or the other players, you may take each of your town actions once. As usual, this lets you construct buildings, hire and reinforce units, and search for spells to add to your Might and Magic deck. Although population does not allow you to recruit a secondary hero. There are 2 types of adventures, events and combats. For an event, simply resolve the text. Keep the card because some of them combo with prior events you've resolved. For a combat adventure, choose one of the 3 lines of combat and then note the strength. Your rewards will be higher as the strength goes up. Then, having chosen the one you've targeted, choose up to 2 of the units that you've previously recruited, add up their attack strengths, and then roll the 2 attack dice. If the total result meets or exceeds the strength of your combat line, then gain the combat reward, as well as the basic reward printed below the line. If you fail to meet the target, then you still get the basic reward below the line, then choose one of the units to stun. Next time you choose that unit for a combat adventure, its attack strength will not count, but you'll remove the stun token. Effects may result in you gaining positive or negative morale. If you gain either, draw or search through the number of cards it tells you to search, and any you don't choose are returned to the bottom of the deck. Then keep the card in play until you choose to use it, at which point you also return it under the deck. You'll use positive morale at the time of your choosing. You'll use negative morale on the first opportunity that the card applies. You may hold at most 2 morale cards at a time. Like with the tokens, if you have negative morale and gain positive morale, you instead simply discard the negative morale. And likewise, if you're holding positive morale and gain negative, you would discard the positive. You'll still manage your hand and deck of Might and Magic cards the same way as the standard game, with 2 exceptions. And these are that if you ever draw a card which is worth resources, or which grants you movement, immediately place it face up beside your hero. In this mode of the game, these are single use and are removed upon being played. Any expert points you gain by leveling up are single use during this phase. That is, reaching level 2 gives me a single expert point to use on a single expert effect, which has to last between now and the start of the battle. The battle phase begins after 9, 13 or 16 rounds of adventuring, depending on whether you wish to play a small, medium or large battle. Do note that in the last round of adventuring, you do not draw any new cards from the deck. You may only resolve a stored adventure if you have one. At this point, remove any stun tokens, draw up to your hand limit, and reset your expert points. Remember, these were single use during the adventure phase, so here I would have had a total of 2 to spend while adventuring. These are now reset, so I have 2 again to start the battle phase. Now set up the battlefield map. Each player has their own deployment zone, and to start off with, you'll go back and forward placing obstacles on the map as long as they're not adjacent to the deployment zones or to each other. Then go back and forward placing units into your deployment zone. Like in the standard game, a combat will take place in combat rounds, and in each round, each unit has the opportunity to activate once and retaliate once. Units still activate in initiative order. At the start of the battle, you'll give the initiative token to one of the players, and in the event of any tie for initiative, it's the player who holds this token who breaks the tie. The token changes hands immediately after each time it is used to actively break a tie. When a unit activates, the number of steps it may take is equal to its initiative. Ground units must move around obstacles. Flying units can fly over them. Ranged units can still attack anywhere on the map, but now the combat penalty for being too far away kicks in as soon as the target is at least 8 hexes away. Other than that, the way you resolve combat and retaliation is unchanged from the standard game. You're still limited to a single spell in each combat round, and expert points are still single use, but you replenish 1 at the end of each round. Regardless of the number of cards you've played, you draw only 2 cards from your Might and Magic deck at the end of each combat round. Keep playing until one player has removed all opposing units from the board, and that player will be the winner. If you want to cut to the combat even more quickly, then you can skip over the adventure phase entirely and play the skirmish mode. Here, simply choose whether you want to play a large, medium or short battle, and add the indicated cards and units. This represents the average haul you would have expected to gain during an adventure phase of that length. You may choose to use the battlefield in your regular games by substituting the hex grid board for the rectilinear board. Do be aware that the game's designers recommend doing this only for player versus player combat in the regular game, not for player versus neutral combat. Finally, if you'd like to use the positive and negative morale decks instead of the morale token, you can do that. These will modularly slip in and out of the standard game with no other rule changes. You'll just need to remove any cards which have this icon. And that is the Battlefield expansion for Heroes of Might and Magic 3, the board game. Now in the final chapter, we'll be teaching you the solo campaign.
Thank you so much for watching. See you there.